people, and welcome. In today's video, we're going to be talking about long division and synthetic division. We're talking about both in this video. There are a bunch of different steps that you need to be aware of. If you follow this very procedural, step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, you're going to be very successful. Now, before we begin, let's go ahead and review some terminology. We will be using terminology in this video. So the first terminology we're going to do is divided by. Since we're doing division, we know division in grade school looks something like this, depending on what country you are from. So let's say we have 24 divided by 4. So we say 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 4 is 24. We write 24 here. We're going to subtract. And so the remainder is 0. So how did we do that in our brain? We said 6 times 4 is 24. So we know that 6, it goes on top. Now I said we're going to talk about terminology. So let's go ahead and rewrite this one more time. I have 24. So 24 divided by 4. And then we said our answer is 6 with the remainder of 0. The first thing we want to the first thing we want to define is this number out here. This number is called divisor. Second thing that I want to define is what is inside. Inside is called dividend. And then what we have on top, or I guess with the remainder of 0, that's called the quotient. Now, quotient you should be familiar with. That's always the answer to a division problem. Divisor and dividend, that's a little bit less common, but it's still very, very important for this lesson. Okay, so let's start with long division. Now, what are we dividing? We are dividing polynomials. So it's going to look something like this. It's going to actually look identical to that. Let's say we have, sorry about that. Let's say we have 2 polynomials that we want to divide. So I want to divide 6x cubed minus 19x squared plus 16x minus 4. And I want to divide that by x minus 2. Now, again, I told you we're going to do a lot of steps in here, so be prepared to write step number 1, step number 2. So let's start with step number 1. You're going to rewrite this as a regular division problem with a bar. Let's not put A. So rewrite as long division with the bar. Now, be careful when you rewrite. If there is a term missing, so if any terms are missing, you need to put in a placeholder. For example, if we have 5x squared plus 3, we would rewrite that as 5x squared plus 0x plus 3. So we want to make sure that our 0 is for the placeholder of x because I don't have a place. And we're going to rewrite this decreasing exponential power. I'm running out of room. That should say exponential. Okay, so step number 1 kind of has 3 steps. We're going to rewrite it like we usually do with long division. If there are any missing terms, we're going to put a 0, and we want it in decreasing exponential power. So the first thing I would recommend is seeing if there's anything that needs to be added, like the placeholder. So I have 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, x to the 0 power is just 1. 1 times 4 is 4, so you're not going to have an x here. So I have 3, 2, 1, 0. So I don't need any placeholders, and I already have this in decreasing power. So my first thing is I'm going to set it up just like a regular division problem. I'm going to say 6x cubed minus 19x squared plus 16x minus 4. So this right here is my dividend. And what I'm dividing by is my divisor. So x minus 2. So dividing by, this is what is being divided. So the dividend is what is being divided. The divisor is what is going into the dividend. Okay, so that's step number 1. I'm going to go ahead and change my sheet of paper, even though I have some room space here, because I don't have any space for step number 2. So that's step number 1. That's kind of like step number 0, and you'll see why. That just your setup. So then let's call this step number, I don't know. This is x minus 2. What do we have here? 6x cubed minus 19x squared plus 16x minus 4. So we already did step number 1. We got this in decreasing order. We got no missing exponents. We got our dividend. We got our divisor. We're good. Now, this is how you're going to set this up. I'm even rolling up my sleeves because we're going to get into this now. You're going to take the first term. Let's see if I can say it. Take the first term of the dividend. Then, that's a D. And divide by. And you're going to divide by the first term of the divisor. Okay, so how will that look like? You're going to take, let me zoom this out just a little bit. You're going to take the first term. You're going to divide it by the first term. So you're going to say 6x cubed divided by x. Now, when you do this, things are going to start to cancel out. Something's going to happen with the x's. If there are numerics, if there's coefficients, then something's going to happen. We're dividing. We're trying to get things smaller. So this means I have 6 times x times x times x. This means I have 1x. Because we have an x on top, we have an x on the bottom. We get to simplify or cancel these out. These go away. So what am I left over with? I am left over with 6x squared. Now, there's 2 things that you're going to do with the 6x squared. So you're going to take the 6x squared, you're going to bring it up, and you're going to not write it here. So that's, my arrow was a little overshot. You're going to write it in front of or on top of the x squares. Because we have x squares, we've got to line things up. So I have 6x squared. So that's the first thing you're going to do. So you're going to take it, you're going to write it on top of the 6x squared. Then, so that's the second thing. So first thing is write it here. Second thing is you're going to take that 6x squared. You're going to multiply that by your divisor. So you're going to take your answer, then you're going to multiply by the divisor. That you're going to distribute, and if you've done this correctly, you're always going to end up what you need to cancel out. You'll see that in a second. So it's 6x cubed minus 6 times negative 2, that's negative 12, and I have x squared. You're going to take this product, you're going to take this answer, And you're going to write it underneath. I'm trying to color code things for you. You're going to take this answer, you're going to write it underneath your 6x cubed minus 12x squared. And you're going to put that in a bubble. Okay, you're going to take the product, you're going to write it under the dividend. Here's what you need to do next, subtract. And then when you write it underneath the dividend, is use parentheses. You're going to subtract, but you're going to almost distribute that negative and add. And the reason you're going to distribute that negative and add is because sometimes it gets a little tricky. So we're going to subtract these. These are going to go away. 6x cubed minus 6x cubed, that's fine. That's 0. And that's always what's going to happen. If you've done this part correctly, that's always going to end up. This first term will always be 0. Now here you're going to do what I asked you here. Distribute the minus and add. So I'm going to take this minus. I'm going to distribute that, which makes it a plus. And now I have this minus goes away. So now I have negative 19 plus 12. So 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That's 7. So I have 7x squared. Now what do? We bring down the rest, the next term. Just like we would in a regular division problem. Now you're going to do the same thing. This is now your first term. This is still your first term, and you're going to repeat the process until you're done. So take the first term of the dividend. So here it is. Take the first term. Take the first term. You're going to divide. Then you're going to write it on top. You're going to multiply and write it on the bottom. So let's do that. So let's step number, I don't even know what step number. Take what we have, the first term, divided by our first term of our divisor. You're going to simplify, which gives me negative 7x. I'm going to take this one, I'm going to write it on top. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to write it on top so I don't forget, minus 7x. Then on the bottom, I'm going to take my negative 7x and I'm going to multiply it by my divisor, which is my x minus 2. This gives me negative 7x squared minus 14x. Taking this right here, and I'm going to write it underneath. And I have negative 7x squared minus 14x, putting that in a bubble because I need to subtract the 2. Now, I have my minus 7x here. Don't worry about it. That's part of our answer. This part here, we need to simplify. Again, we're going to subtract. We're going to distribute that negative and add. So if I distribute that negative, I'm going to change the sign, and we're going to add. Change the sign, and we're going to add. So now I have negative 7 and positive 7x squared. So again, if you've done this correctly, these two will always cancel out, give you 0. Now we're looking at 16x and 14x. So that is, 30? Oh, you guys, I messed up. Hope you caught that. Negative 7 times a negative 2, that's a positive 14. So what that means is before anything happened, this should have been a positive. And then afterwards, we're going to change that to a minus. So then we have 16 minus 14, that is 2x. Bring down our last term here, which is a minus 4. 2x minus 4. Again, same steps all over again. You're going to take the first term of what we have. You're going to divide it by the first term of our dividend, or excuse me, our first term by our divisor. So we have 2x divided by x. That gives me, you can't see, that gives me just 2. We're going to take the 2, we're going to write it on top. We're going to take the 2, we're going to multiply by our divisor. What's it, minus 2? We're going to multiply this out, 2x minus 4. So then I'm going to take this one, write it underneath, and I'm going to take the 2 right on top. So 2 goes on top. 2x minus 4 goes on the bottom. In a bubble, we're subtracting. I have 2x minus 4, take away 2x minus 4. So that gives me 0. My remainder is 0. And this you have as your final answer. So your answer, your quotient of this division problem is 6x2 minus 7x plus 2. It should be a quotient. Just the answer. So this is how you're going to divide long ways, okay? Always take the first term, divide by the first term. We're going to do another example, but we're going to do this example much quicker. So example number 2. We're going to say 3x cubed minus 5x squared plus 10x minus 3 divided by 3x plus 1. You can make sure that you're following along with your steps. Step number 1 is check. We want to check order, decreasing order. We want to check missing terms. And then we want to rewrite. So my order is 3, and I'm looking at the exponent. 2, 1, 0. So my order is good. There's no missing terms. I'm going to rewrite it as long division. So I have 3x cubed minus 5x squared plus 10x minus 3. And all of that is being divided by 3x plus 1. All right, let's go ahead and move this along. Take your first term, divide it by your first term. Take your first term divided by your first term. So I have 3x cubed divided by 3x. Again, this is 3 times x times x times x. This is 3 times x. You're going to cross out what is similar, what is the same. So what are you left over with? You are left over with x squared. You're going to take that x squared. 2 things are going to happen. You're going to write it on top. You're going to write it on the bottom. So x squared is on the bottom. X squared is on top. Now, the one that's on the bottom is going to be multiplied by whatever you're dividing by. So it's 3x plus 1. So 3x times x squared, that is 3x to the third power, plus x squared. You're going to take this part right here. You're going to write it underneath. So I have 3x cubed plus x squared. You're going to put that in a bubble. You're going to subtract. But you're not really going to subtract. You're going to change all the symbols. And you're going to actually add. If you've done this correctly, then these two will always cancel out. The first terms will always cancel out. Here, you're going to subtract or add because you've changed the symbol. So -5 and, we'll read this as and, don't read this as a plus. So -5 and -2, excuse me, negative x squared. So I have -6x squared. Bring that one down, plus 10x, and repeat the process all over again. So what are we doing? We're taking the first term, dividing it by the first term. So what do I have? I have -6x squared divided by 3x. Again, what do I have? -6 times x times x. I have 3 times x. My x's cancel out. I have a 3 goes away. Here's a 2. So I have, what do I have left over? I have left over a -2x. Take this, you're going to write it twice. You're going to write it on top. You're going to write it on the bottom. So I have a -2x. Okay, so now that we have a -2x, you're going to bring down here, multiply it whatever we are dividing by. You're always going to end up with this term right here if you've done it correctly. So we have negative 6x squared, and this is a minus 2x. We're going to take this, write it underneath. So we have negative 6x squared minus 2x. Again, don't let this trip you up. This is subtraction, so put it in a bubble. Now what we're actually doing is we're going to change the signs. So this is a plus, this is a plus, this is a plus now. Now you're reading it as and. So I have negative 6x squared and positive 6x squared. Again, first terms always cancel out. I have 10 x's and I have 2 x's. That means I have 12 x's. I'm going to bring this down. So I have a negative 3. Doing that one more time until we run out of terms. So here we are, first term. Let's change that to a blue since I've been using blue. So now what do I have? Now I have 12x divided by 3x. Simplify that. Again, what do I have? 12 times x divided by 3 times x. My excess goes away. 12 divided by 3 is 4. I just have 4 left over. I'm taking that 4. I'm doing two things with it. I'm writing it on top. I'm writing it on the bottom. On top, I'm writing I have a positive 4. On the bottom, I'm going to multiply that by whatever I'm dividing by. So 3x plus 1. I have 12x plus 4. So I have 12x plus 4. Take this. Copy it down in a bubble in a minus. 12x plus 4. So then what do? We change the sign. So this is now negative. This is now negative. This is plus 12x and minus 12x. You've done your job correctly. That's going to be a 0. I have negative 3 and negative 4. So that means I have a negative 7. Now notice there's no more terms for us to bring down. So you're going to write this like this. You're going to have a remainder. But this is how you're going to write your remainder. Your remainder is written in the form of taking this number, which is a minus 7, and underneath it, you're going to write whatever you're dividing by. So 3x plus 1, just like you would back in grade school. You're going to take this number, negative 7. That's your remainder. You're going to write this in a fraction form. So here's negative 7. And what is underneath that fraction is whatever you're going to be dividing by, your divisor. And your divisor is here. Then what is your final answer? Your final answer, your quotient, is this right here. All right, beautiful people, I'm actually going to separate this into 2 videos, so we'll do synthetic division in a separate video, but there's one last thing I want to mention before we take off. This is going to be in a thinking bubble. So if there is no remainder, then your divisor is a factor. And the opposite is also true. If there is a remainder, then your divisor is not a factor. All right, beautiful people, this wraps up this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you caught a mistake, if I make a mistake, I'm human, just let me know. I'll learn from it. And I will see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye.